Hey there, glad you're here. Whether you're pacing around the living room, curled up under a blanket, or just letting the Minecraft world roll by in the background, this space is yours to settle in. Nothing too intense, just some wildly unhinged Reddit drama, told slowly over cozy pixels. There's something oddly satisfying about watching other people's chaos unfold in perfect karmic detail. From freeloading siblings getting evicted to workplace clowns sabotaging themselves in slow motion. And let's be honest, sometimes the best part is seeing petty behavior backfire harder than anyone expected. So stay tuned because we've got exes pushing boundaries, neighbors who forgot what privacy means, and one story that ends with a twist no one saw coming. Seriously, it escalates fast. Let's jump in. My boss always had this look on his face like he'd just discovered fire. You know the type. Walks into the office like he's doing everyone a favor just by existing. He wore cufflinks to Zoom meetings, called his Tesla the machine, and once referred to himself as a visionary out loud, in a completely unironic way. I worked in financial operations for a mid-sized tech company. Think we want to be Google when we grow up, but with a snack budget and way too many Slack channels. I wasn't anything flashy, just one of those behind-the-scenes people who actually make the quarterly numbers look clean. The kind of job where no one notices you until someone screws up. And screw up he did. It started with a weird email. I was going through the Q2 expense reports and noticed something off. One of the figures from our team didn't match what had been submitted to corporate. Not by a few dollars either. I'm talking 5 figures. At first I assumed it was a simple error. Maybe someone fat-fingered a number or dragged the wrong cell in Excel. It happens. But when I brought it up to my manager, let's call him Chad, because of course his name was Chad, he brushed it off way too quickly. "Oh, don't worry about that," he said, barely looking up from his phone. "We adjusted those to align with the forward-facing metrics." I blinked. "What does that even mean?" Chad smiled in that smug MBA speak way. "It means we're managing perception. We don't need to raise alarms over minor discrepancies." Minor discrepancies, that's what he called a $17,000 fudge job. That was red flag number 1. I didn't confront him outright. I just did what any spreadsheet goblin with a conscience would do. I went digging, quietly, carefully, and what I found made my stomach drop. Chad had been massaging numbers for months. Little tweaks here, small adjustments there. Rounding errors that conveniently helped him meet performance targets. He was doctoring reports to make our department look more profitable than it really was. And here's the kicker. Every time we looked like we were under budget, he got a bonus. Classic corporate sleight of hand. Make the numbers lie, take the credit, and pretend it's strategy. So I documented everything. Email chains, Slack threads, time-stamped spreadsheet versions, even one particularly damning voice message where he said, "As long as it looks good to the board, we're golden." I backed it all up on a personal drive, just in case. And then, just when I was trying to figure out how to report this without putting a target on my back, Chad did the most Chad thing imaginable. He fired me. No warning, no performance review. Just pulled me into a quick sync on a Friday and said my output had fallen short of expectations. I was stunned. "I'm sorry," I said. "Based on what?" He gave this little shrug. "We're moving in a different direction. This isn't personal." Of course it was personal. He'd seen me asking too many questions. He knew I was onto him. And he thought if he cut me loose now, the trail would go cold. If you've made it this far into the chaos, you're as addicted to Reddit drama as I am. Make sure to subscribe. This boss is about to learn that corporate karma doesn't miss. I'll admit, for about a day, I was just numb. I'd always been the quiet, do your job and go home type. I wasn't the whistleblower type. But being fired for trying to do the right thing, that flipped a switch in me. So I polished up my documentation, wrote a calm, factual, bulletproof email, and sent it anonymously to 2 places, the internal compliance officer and the board of directors. Then I waited. 4 days later, I got a call from one of my former coworkers, a buddy who worked in a different department. "Dude," he said, breathless, "did you hear? Chad just got suspended pending an investigation. They're digging into all the Q2 reports. I played dumb, of course." "Really? Wow. That's wild inside." I was pacing in tiny victorious circles. The investigation took 3 weeks. Apparently, once corporate started pulling at the thread, it unraveled fast. Multiple years of falsified data, bonus fraud, a whole web of shady expense justifications and off-the-record consulting invoices. One board member reportedly called it the dumbest attempt at embezzlement I've ever seen. They didn't just fire Chad, they nuked his entire career. There was an internal memo, which, bless my old coworker, I got forwarded, that announced his termination for gross misconduct and ethical violations. He lost his bonus, his stock options, his standing desk, all of it. His LinkedIn went dark within the week. And me? Well, I got an email from corporate, a very polite one, asking if I'd consider coming back, with a raise. I politely declined. I already had interviews lined up with 3 companies, all of whom loved the phrase, acted with integrity during a compliance failure. Apparently, quiet spreadsheet people don't stay invisible forever. Sometimes being the reasonable person in an unreasonable situation makes you look like the problem. Right up until the receipts show otherwise. Chad thought he was untouchable. Turns out a well-organized Google Drive is more dangerous than any title. And speaking of people who absolutely shouldn't be in charge, the next one involves a mother-in-law who treats her son's wife like a maid, until the tables turn in the most satisfying way. When my husband asked if his mom could stay with us, just for a little while, after her knee surgery, I said yes. Without hesitation, without conditions, just yes. I wanted to be supportive. She'd always been a little intense, but I figured recovery would be tough, and I genuinely believed that helping her out would bring us closer. I didn't know I was about to let an entitled tyrant invade my home, like it was her personal kingdom. The first few days were fine. She hobbled around, watched reality TV on full blast, and asked for help getting in and out of bed. No big deal. I cooked her meals, fluffed her pillows, even moved a comfy chair into the guest room so she wouldn't have to go far. I was playing the good daughter-in-law, and honestly, I didn't mind, at first, but then she started commenting on everything. The sauce is a little bland, sweetie. Are you sure you should be wearing leggings outside? This couch is all wrong for the shape of the room. I laughed it off at first. She's recovering, I told myself. People get cranky when they're in pain. But the comments turned into little digs. The digs turned into full-on critiques. And before I knew it, she wasn't just judging my cooking. She was criticizing how I folded laundry, how I hovered over my husband, translation sat next to him on our couch, and even how I arranged our spice rack. One afternoon I came home from work and she had rearranged our living room furniture. I'm not exaggerating. The entire layout was flipped. Our sectional was facing the opposite wall, the coffee table had been shoved into a corner, and she had the audacity to say, "Doesn't it feel so much more open now?" I blinked. "Did you move all this yourself? With your knee?" "Oh, I had the cable guy help me." He was sweet. The cable guy. She roped the cable guy into her unsolicited home makeover project. And she was so smug about it, like I should thank her for giving my living room a feng shui intervention. That was the first escalation, but it wasn't even the worst part. About a week later, I noticed something strange. My journal, which I keep in my nightstand drawer, was out of place. It was always tucked neatly behind a stack of books, and now it was just sitting there, half closed with a bookmark I never used. My heart dropped. There's no nice way to say it. She read it. She read my private thoughts, things I wrote down to decompress, not to share. I didn't need proof. I just knew. And later that night, she dropped a comment that confirmed it. "You know," she said, stirring her tea, "a good wife doesn't always have to feel like she's performing." Marriage is about service, not perfection. I stared at her. That was almost word for word something I'd written the night before, about how I was struggling to juggle work, home, and trying to be on all the time. She quoted my own diary back to me like she was some kind of twisted self-help guru. That's when the switch flipped. I stopped being accommodating. I stopped brushing things off. I started documenting, and then came the breaking point. My husband and I were out on a rare date night, dinner and a movie. When we came home, my mother-in-law had thrown a girls' wine night with 2 of her friends, in our house. They were loud, they were drunk, and they were sprawled across the couch I bought with my money, eating my snacks and drinking a very expensive bottle of red I'd been saving. She looked up at me and smiled like nothing was wrong. "You're home early." My husband was still trying to play diplomat. "Mom, we didn't know you were having people over." "Oh, relax," she said, waving him off. "You said I could make myself comfortable." I went upstairs, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed, just vibrating. I felt like I was living with a sitcom villain, except it wasn't funny. It was suffocating. The next morning, I made a call. Not to my therapist, not to my mom. To a lawyer. I explained the situation. My mother-in-law was not paying rent, had no lease, and had technically only been staying with us for a few weeks. The lawyer asked me 2 questions. Has she been receiving mail at your address? No. Is she listed on any bills? Also no, he exhaled. Then she's not a tenant. You can evict her without a formal court process. You'll need to give her a written notice to vacate, ideally by certified mail, and give her a deadline. That's when I knew I wasn't crazy. She was overstepping in my house, and I had every legal right to reclaim my space. So I wrote the letter. Not aggressive, not emotional, just firm. It said she had 10 days to find alternate accommodations and vacate the premises. It was sent certified, signed for, and taped to the fridge for good measure. When she saw it, she laughed. Oh, honey, she said, you're not serious. Where would I go? I looked her dead in the eye. That's not my responsibility. You've made it clear you don't respect my home. You need to leave. She pouted. She cried. She guilt-tripped my husband. She's kicking me out after everything I've been through. He looked torn. I could see it in his face. But to his credit, he backed me up. She didn't kick you out, he said gently. You pushed her boundaries for weeks. You need to go stay with Aunt Carol or Uncle Mike or whoever else will take you in. She left 3 days later, took her recliner chair, her reality TV DVDs, and her basil plant. And the silence that followed? Glorious. Sometimes setting boundaries feels like cruelty, especially when people weaponize guilt like it's their first language. But boundaries aren't punishment. They're protection. She thought our kindness was permission to take over. She learned the hard way that it wasn't. Wow. The audacity of reading someone's journal and still thinking you're the victim, that's next level entitlement. Honestly, it's exhausting just hearing about it. She wasn't a guest. She was a full-blown home invader in pearls. But the best part? No screaming, no drama. Just one letter and a door that closed behind her. But if you think that's bold, wait until you hear about the neighbor who literally built a fence through someone's driveway and claimed it as his own. I've dealt with bad neighbors before. The kind who blast music at 2 a.m. or let their dog bark at nothing for hours. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the sheer audacity of Gerald. Gerald moved in next door about 8 months ago. Retired, must have been in his late 60s, walked around like he owned the whole cul-de-sac. You know the type. White New Balance sneakers, tucked in polo, that get off my lawn energy baked into every conversation. At first, I tried to be friendly. Brought him cookies when he moved in. Shoveled part of his sidewalk when it snowed early in the season. Just normal neighborly things. He wasn't exactly warm, but he nodded occasionally and I figured, fine. Not everyone's a social butterfly. What mattered was keeping things cordial. And then, I woke up one Saturday morning, made coffee, looked out the front window and nearly choked. There was a fence. A brand new wooden fence running clean through the side of my driveway. And I don't mean close to it. I mean on it. Like 3 feet into my property, halfway blocking where I park my car. It looked like something out of a sitcom where the characters misread blueprints and build a wall through someone's house. But this was real life, and Gerald had actually fenced off a chunk of my driveway, like it was part of his yard. I marched outside, still in pajamas, and saw him standing there with a contractor, arms crossed, looking proud. The contractor looked vaguely uncomfortable, like he knew this was sketchy, but had already been paid. I said, Gerald, what is this? He didn't even blink. Property line's always been off. Just correcting it. That was the moment I realized I wasn't dealing with a grumpy old man. I was dealing with a delusional one. I said, you're blocking part of my driveway. That's not your land, he shrugged. Disagree. You've been using my property for years. Let's pause there. I'd lived in my house for 6 years. Gerald had been there for 8 months. But suddenly I was the one stealing land. You'd think I'd paved over his rose garden or something. I asked if he had a survey. Nope, he said. Don't need one. You can see where the line is, and that was escalation number 1. Because not only was this man taking over part of my driveway without warning, he was confident about it. So confident he hired someone to build a fence through it before even knocking on my door. I told him he needed to take it down. He laughed. laughed, said if I had a problem I could take it up with the city. So, I did. Not the city exactly, but I started with a property survey, called a local surveyor, explained the situation, and they came out that week. They were extremely chill about it. Apparently, driveway disputes are more common than I realized. The results? Exactly what I suspected. The fence was 3 feet into my property and about a foot into the city-owned easement. The report even noted that Gerald's fence violated local code. It had no setback, no permit, and no right to exist where it stood. I brought the report over to Gerald in a little manila envelope, all calm and polite. He glanced at it and handed it back. Fake. You probably paid someone to fudge the numbers, I blinked. You think I forged a land survey? I know how people are, he muttered and walked back into his house. And that's when it really sank in. This wasn't just some misunderstanding. Gerald wanted a fight. He thought he could intimidate me into backing down. Maybe it worked with other neighbors, but he picked the wrong person this time. Then came the breaking point. A week later, I came home from work and found a note taped to my front door. It was from Gerald, handwritten. It said, "Greater than, I've notified my lawyer that you are illegally trespassing on my property by continuing to use the driveway section that is now enclosed by my fence. If you park there again, I will have the car towed and file a complaint for harassment for parking in my own driveway." I took a picture of the note, then immediately called a lawyer. And this time, I wasn't just documenting, I was going nuclear. We filed a claim in small claims court for property damage, loss of use, and removal costs. I attached the certified survey, the construction photos, Gerald's note, and a nice little video walkthrough showing just how far into my property the fence went. 2 weeks later, Gerald was served. He didn't take it well. I heard him yelling on the phone through his open kitchen window. Something about government lies and young people with no respect. At one point, he accused my fence, which hadn't changed in years, of moving. I kid you not. The court date arrived, and let me tell you, Gerald came in with a hand-drawn map, on notebook paper, with squiggly arrows and little trees sketched in. He tried to argue that property lines were flexible and that his builder had used common sense based on how the lawn was shaped. The judge took one look at the survey, the official documentation, and Gerald's Sharpie masterpiece, and ruled in my favor in under 10 minutes. The verdict: Gerald had 30 days to remove the fence at his own expense, pay damages for blocking my property, and reimburse my legal fees. Oh, and a fine from the city for illegal construction. That part wasn't even from me. The city tacked it on separately once they saw the permit violations. A few days later, I came home to see a different contractor taking the fence down. Gerald stood nearby, arms crossed, red in the face, refusing to look at me. I waved. "Afternoon!" He didn't wave back, but I did get a letter from his lawyer the following week. A weak little attempt at demanding I respect the boundaries of peaceful coexistence. I framed it. It hangs in my garage now, right next to the part of the driveway he tried to steal. Wow, this guy literally built a fence on someone else's land, with full confidence and zero evidence. It's almost impressive, like watching someone walk into traffic while insisting they own the road. The audacity is wild, but what really gets me is the hand-drawn map. Just amazing. Sometimes the best revenge is just giving someone enough rope to hang themselves, or in this case, enough lumber to trespass into a lawsuit. But we're not done yet. The next story involves a bridesmaid, a white dress, and a wedding speech that turns into poetic karma on the microphone. Let's just say, not all spotlight stealing ends well. And just when you think you've heard it all, let me tell you about the bridesmaid who hijacked an entire wedding and paid the price publicly. Let's rewind a little. The wedding was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. You know the drill: Pinterest boards, spreadsheet tabs, dress fittings that somehow feel like therapy sessions with zippers. I had it all planned. I even managed to survive the nightmare that is seating charts. But what I didn't plan for? My bridesmaid showing up in a white dress like she was auditioning for my role. Now this wasn't just any guest. This was Melanie, my former roommate, sometimes best friend, sometimes chaos goblin. It really depended on the day. We'd known each other since college, and our friendship had always been this weird push-pull dynamic. She was the type who could make you laugh until you cried, and then forget your birthday 2 days later. But I kept her in my life, mostly out of habit, partly because she always knew how to make an entrance, Unfortunately, that's exactly what she did at my wedding. So the morning of, I'm sipping coffee with shaky hands, surrounded by the usual pre-wedding whirlwind. Curling irons, mimosa flutes, too many perfume options. One of my other bridesmaids, bless her soul, comes over and says, "Hey, don't panic, but Melanie's here, and she's wearing white." I actually laughed, like, full laugh. "She's kidding, right?" "No," she said, "not even close. Floor-length, ivory, lace. Full-on bridal vibes." I got up and peeked through the upstairs window like I was in a sitcom. There she was, standing outside the venue, greeting people in what I can only describe as a discount bridal gown. Like, she didn't just wear white, she wore wedding white. It even had sparkles. I should have been furious. I was furious for about 30 seconds, but then something switched. Because in that moment, I realized if she wanted attention, she was going to get it. Just not the kind she wanted. So I smiled, took a sip of my mimosa, and said, "Okay, let her cook." But that wasn't even the worst part. As guests started arriving, I started hearing whispers. Nothing huge, just little passing comments. I heard the bride's been super stressed. I think Melanie said she almost cancelled the whole thing last week. She was planting seeds. Quiet little jabs designed to make people question whether I was some kind of tyrannical bridezilla. Which, side note, I wasn't. Did I want the napkins to match the table runners? Yes. Did I demand people call me Your Majesty during the rehearsal dinner? Number. Calm down. Anyway, she was doing what she always did, creating drama and then sitting in the middle of it like a smug little gremlin. But I stayed cool, because this time I had a plan. During dinner, my maid of honor gave the sweetest speech I've ever heard. Tears, laughter, all of it. Then my dad gave a short, awkward but adorable toast. Then I got up, microphone in hand, and I said, "Before we move on to dessert, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who's been a part of today, especially the people who've shown up for me in every sense." I looked directly at Melanie. "Mel, you've always been the kind of friend who needs the last word. So tonight I wanted to give you the mic. You always say you'd make a great maid of honor. Here's your moment." And I held the mic out to her. She looked stunned. Her mouth opened, closed. She glanced around like someone who just realized the stage lights are very real. But she took it. She stood up, adjusted her faux bridal gown like she was in a slow-motion disaster movie, and started talking. And wow, it was a train wreck. She tried to make a joke about how we've had our ups and downs, which landed like a rock in a pool. She said something about how brides can be particular, but that's part of their charm, which got more side eyes than laughs. She kept looking at me, then at the crowd, like she couldn't tell which direction the ground was coming from. And the cherry on top, she ended her speech with, "Anyway, it's not about me, it's about love," and then awkwardly handed the mic back like it had burned her fingers. I smiled, took the mic, and said, "Thanks, Mel." That was memorable. People clapped, not for her, just to end the moment. The rest of the night, pure poetic justice. Guests avoided her like she had foot-in-mouth disease. One of my cousins asked if she'd gotten lost on the way to her wedding. The photographer, bless him, cropped her out of most group shots after I pulled him aside. And she didn't even stay for the sparkler send-off. She left early, quietly, just like I knew she would. Sometimes being the reasonable person in an unreasonable situation means biting your tongue until the moment's right. And when that moment comes, it's not about revenge. It's about letting people reveal themselves. Melanie wanted the spotlight, and I gave it to her, right when it would show exactly who she really was. Wow, showing up to someone else's wedding in white and trying to rewrite the narrative? That's not just petty, that's Olympic-level sabotage. But honestly, watching her crash and burn during her own unsolicited toast? Chef's kiss. She basically wrote her own downfall in real time. Sometimes the best revenge is saying nothing, until you hand them a microphone. But speaking of wild turns, you are not ready for what's next. Imagine hiring a pet sitter, only to find out they threw a full-blown party in your house while your dog was locked in the bathroom. Yeah, that story's up next. That was bold, but nothing compares to this next one. Imagine hiring a pet sitter and finding out they threw a party in your house while your dog was locked in the bathroom. So I'm one of those people who treats my dog like he's made of gold. His name is Baxter. He's a rescue mutt with old soul eyes and anxiety that could rival a sleep-deprived grad student. Sweetest dog you'll ever meet, but absolutely not the kind of animal you can just leave in a kennel or toss a bone at and hope for the best. That's why, before I left for a weekend trip with my sister, literally just 3 days, I spent hours researching pet sitters. I wanted someone highly rated, background checked, reviewed by other obsessive dog parents. Eventually, I found her. Her name was Amanda, and she looked perfect on paper. 5 stars, dozens of glowing reviews. The kind of profile that says, "I'll tuck your dog in at night and sing lullabies." She came by for a meet and greet, brought treats, sat on the floor to bond with Baxter. He wagged his tail cautiously, and even let her scratch behind his ears. That never happens on the first meeting. I figured, okay, great, she's hired. I gave her a full printed guide, emergency contacts, vet number, feeding times, even a Spotify playlist labeled Baxter's Chill Mix. Yes, I'm that person. I walked her through the whole house, showed her where the treats were, double confirmed she'd be staying overnight. She smiled the whole time, said, "Of course. I treat every dog like my own famous last words." I left Friday morning and didn't think much of it. Amanda texted that night to say Baxter had eaten dinner and was snoozing on the couch. She sent a photo, a little blurry, but it looked fine. I figured all was well. But that wasn't even the worst part. Saturday afternoon, my sister started feeling sick. Food poisoning, we think. So we decided to cut the trip short and head home that night. I texted Amanda to let her know we'd be back early Sunday, just to give her a heads up. She didn't respond, which was unusual, but I figured maybe she was out walking Baxter or had her phone on silent. We pulled into the driveway around 11 p.m. The porch light was on, music was playing, and not calm ambient music. I mean bass-thumping party music. At first I thought maybe I was losing it, but then I saw the lights flashing through the curtains. Laughter, multiple voices. Then someone opened the front door, mid-laugh, and I watched a total stranger step out onto my porch with a solo cup. I froze. "Who the hell are you?" He blinked. Is this not Samantha's place?" "No. And it's definitely not Amanda's." He paused, looked back inside and said, "Oh," awkward, before speed walking down the sidewalk and disappearing into the night. I stepped inside and felt my stomach drop. There were people everywhere, like at least 15 to 20 of them, some sitting on my couch. One guy was literally sprawled on the floor with a video game controller in his hand. Someone was drinking from one of my wine glasses. I spotted a girl eating chips straight out of the bag on my kitchen counter. And Amanda? Nowhere in sight. That was the breaking point. I stormed into the house and started yelling, "Where is Amanda?" Most of the strangers froze. Some tried to shuffle toward the door. I kept moving room to room, calling Baxter's name. No sign of him. My heart was pounding. The house was loud, messy, and smelled like cheap perfume and spilled beer. Then I heard it, a faint bark. I followed it to the downstairs bathroom, the one with no windows. Baxter was locked inside, in the dark, with no water. His bed wasn't there, just a single pee pad, soaked, and nothing else. When I opened the door, he ran straight to me, shaking, tail tucked. His little paws skidded across the floor as he tried to climb into my lap. He was terrified. That's when Amanda finally showed up, holding a plastic cup, laughing with some guy in the hallway. When she saw me, her face fell like a curtain yanked off stage. "Oh my God, I didn't know you'd be back early." I didn't even respond. Just picked up Baxter, grabbed my phone, and started filming. She stammered, "It's not what it looks like." I turned the camera on the living room, the spilled drinks, the strangers. One guy burped and waved at the camera. I said, "This exactly what it looks like." People started rushing out like roaches when the lights come on. Amanda tried to stop me from recording. I told her, "Touch me or my dog and I will make this so much worse for you." I posted the footage privately to the pet sitting app first, alongside a timeline of everything she'd done, including the locked bathroom, the party, and her total abandonment of Baxter. Then I filed a report with local animal welfare. Turns out locking a dog in a bathroom without water is considered neglect, especially for hours, especially when you leave the house. The app banned her immediately, no questions. I got a personal call from someone on their legal team apologizing and assuring me she'd be flagged across all partner platforms. But I didn't stop there. I took the clips, blurred the guest faces, and made a TikTok titled, "When Your Pet Sitter Turns Your House into a Frat Party and Locks Your Dog in the Bathroom." It went viral overnight, like millions of views. Dog people were furious. Amanda's profile photo was screenshot and shared like wildfire across every dog mom Facebook group in the tri-state area. Within a week, she was banned from 3 other pet care apps. Her social media went dark, and someone even sent me a screenshot of her trying to defend herself in a Facebook thread, claiming I overreacted and came home too early. Right, because apparently her party was scheduled to end 5 minutes before I walked in. Wow, locking a dog in a bathroom so you can throw a party in a stranger's house? That's not just irresponsible, that's next level trash behavior. She wasn't a pet sitter, she was a liability with a Spotify playlist and zero shame. But the best part, she could have just done her job, fed the dog, played fetch, got paid. Instead, she nuked her reputation in one weekend, and the internet made sure it stayed nuked. Sometimes karma doesn't knock, it just opens the bathroom door and starts recording. Now, if that story left your jaw on the floor, just wait. Because this next one is about a stepdad, a $3,000 camera, and the brutal moment when trying to set a boundary turned into emotional blackmail from a 10-year-old's mom. You're not ready for this, where a tech-savvy teen turns the tables on their mum's controlling new boyfriend and exposes his biggest secret. Let me just start by saying, I really tried to give the guy a chance. I mean, my mom had been single for a while and she deserved to be happy. So when she introduced Todd, as someone special, I didn't immediately hate him. He was polite enough, brought over takeout a few times, even helped install a new dishwasher when ours broke. On the surface, he seemed normal, but I've learned that normal can be a mask, especially for guys who like control. At first, it was small things, like if I left a dish in the sink, he'd make a comment, not to me, to my mum, when he thought I wasn't listening. She's old enough to clean up after herself, don't you think? Okay, whatever. I do clean up after myself. Then it was curfews, not just for weekends, for weeknights. Suddenly, I wasn't allowed to stay out past 8 p.m. on a Tuesday if I was studying with friends. The kicker? My mum never made that rule. Todd did. And he'd enforce it by texting me things like, "You need to respect the household now. We have structure, we." It's the we for me. Still, I tried to be cool about it. I told myself he just had old school ideas, or maybe he was trying too hard. But then he started making comments about my phone. "You're always glued to that thing. You know, people your age are addicted to their screens, right? You wouldn't need so much privacy if you weren't hiding anything." That last one? Yeah, that was aimed directly at me. And then, things got creepy. One night, I was scrolling Instagram and noticed something weird. I'd sent a few DMs earlier that day. Nothing major, just talking to friends. And some of the messages were missing. Not all of them, just random ones. And a couple of my apps logged me out for no reason. At first, I thought my phone was glitching, until I saw the notification. Device administration permission granted to SafeWatch Pro. SafeWatch Pro. I had never downloaded that app, didn't even know what it was, so I Googled it, and what I found made my stomach turn. It's one of those shady parental control apps, the kind that lets someone track your location, monitor your messages, delete content remotely, and even turn on your camera or mic. Not just monitor, control. And guess what? You can only install it by manually granting it permissions. Someone had to physically put it on my phone, and the only person who'd had access to my phone recently? Todd. I confronted my mum first. "Did you install anything on my phone?" She looked genuinely confused. "No." "Why?" I showed her the app, explained what it did. Her face went pale. "I didn't do this," she said. "I swear." Then I asked the real question. "Do you think Todd would have?" And instead of saying no, she hesitated. Just for a second. But it told me everything. That was escalation 1. Escalation 2 came the next morning. I checked her phone, with her permission. And guess what I found? SafeWatch Pro, installed under a fake name, System Health Monitor. I said, "Did you know this was on here?" She didn't. She didn't even remember downloading it. Which means he probably installed it when she handed him her phone to fix her Bluetooth a few weeks ago. That was the breaking point, because now it wasn't just me. It was both of us. So I did what any 17-year-old tech nerd with a petty streak and a working knowledge of cybersecurity would do. I got to work. First, I reverse engineered the app's settings. Turns out, SafeWatch Pro logs activity to a cloud dashboard, and if you know where to look and you do a little guessing with the default admin passwords, cough admin123 cough, you can find out exactly who's behind the control panel. Bingo. The account was registered under Todd's email, but not just one email. He had multiple aliases. I cross-referenced them with usernames on a few sketchy forums, and that's when I found his double life. Todd, my mum's respectable boyfriend, was still married, had a whole other family in a different state. Wife, 2 kids, a golden retriever named Buster, the whole thing. And the kicker? On one of the forums, he was bragging about how easy it was to manage people using tools like SafeWatch. "They'll never know," he wrote. "Just act like you're helping them with their tech issues." I screenshot everything, every forum post, every email address, the registry on my mum's phone and mine, even a clip of him saying, "You don't need to worry about your phone, I already optimized it for you." He thought he was being helpful. Turns out he was building his own digital prison. So I compiled it all into a single PDF and handed it to my mum over breakfast. She didn't say a word the entire time she scrolled, but I could see the shift, the betrayal sinking in. She looked up and said, "Can you be home this afternoon?" "Yeah. I need to have a conversation with Todd." In person, he came over around 3 p.m., like nothing was wrong. Brought her flowers, smiled, asked if I'd finished my homework. She handed him the printout. He read the first page, then the second, then slowly sat down on the edge of the couch like the air had been sucked out of the room. "I can explain." "No," my mum said. "You can leave." He didn't fight. Just grabbed his jacket and left. Didn't even look at me. We haven't seen him since. Wow. Imagine being so obsessed with control that you end up getting exposed by a teenager with a printer and a conscience. The irony? He installed spyware to monitor us, and all it did was give me the evidence to completely destroy him. Sometimes being the quiet one in the room just means you're the one collecting data. We've seen bosses fall, bridesmaids squirm, and neighbors get humbled. Poetic justice never sleeps. If you've made it this far, you're as hooked as I am. Sweet dreams, everyone. And remember, karma might be slow, but it's always precise.